Hello, you're watching Telecom TV, reporting from the Internet of Retail event here in Gerrards Cross, somewhere north of London in the stockbroker belt. I'm talking with David Roth, who is the CEO of the WPP Global Retail Practice. David, welcome and thanks for talking to us.
It's a pleasure, thanks for inviting me.
Start where we should. What is the WPP Global Retail Practice?
Well, WPP is the world's largest communication group, and I sit in the strategy team at the central WPP across all of our operator companies, and one of my responsibilities is retail, the service we provide to retailers, the thought leadership for retailers, and we do that from a central position across all of our operating companies.
Is it then a consultancy, advice? What do you actually provide?
Well, both consultancy advice and also advise internally within the WPP group as to what services we should be providing.
So it's a two-way street.
Yes, for our retail clients, and indeed what acquisitions possibly we should make in order to make sure that we have the right services and offerings across the board for our retailers right across the world.
So you've got your finger on the pulse of what's happening as far as IoT is concerned, because it seems to be taking the world by storm at the moment.
Well, you know, IoT is going to have a significant impact in the world of retailing. You know, if you wind the clock forward 10 years, we probably won't be talking about IoT. We'll probably just be talking about life. It will be ingrained in a lot of things that we do, but its significance is profound, and I think one of the reasons it is profound is the fact that we are, you know, hitting another inflection point, and at all inflection points, those people who lead before the inflection points are very unlikely to lead after the inflection point has happened. And I think that's why retailers around the world and the brands that support them are looking at the IoT as a significant way of enhancing their customer proposition and their brand proposition.
I'd like to talk to you about data, brand, etc. in a few minutes in a bit more detail, but let's talk about your clients, the people that you're dealing with on a daily basis. They must have policies and strategies set out to enable the deployment and the uptake of the Internet of Retail. Is that now beginning to become set, or is it still an amorphous concept? And is it in place yet? Do people really understand what they're doing?
Well, I would categorise this as work in progress. I think that the vast majority of retailers, and I'm fortunate to be able to speak to a lot of main board directors of different retail groups right across the world, are clearly all aware, but they're in very different stages of, first of all, developing what their strategy should be around it, and secondly, the implementation phase of what that strategy is.
The benefits of Internet of Retail and Internet of Things are in many ways self-evident. Now, certainly the hype cycle is going full blast at the moment, saying how great it's going to be. And you say, I agree with you very much, there's going to be of profound significance in due course. But of course, there's a downside to everything, there's an obverse to the coin. What do you see as being the most likely pitfalls or difficulties that people are going to come across that they may not expect?
Well, I think there are probably three things that fall into that bucket. The first is organisational. Which is organisations are pretty good at doing the current, not that good at bringing new innovative ways in. And I think with the Internet of Things, Internet of Retail, whatever we're going to call it, there's going to be a constant stream of innovation that's coming through. So I think, first of all, there is an organisation issue that needs to be addressed. The second thing is there is the trials, and a lot of trials are happening. I think this year will probably be categorised as the year of the extended trials. But the third, and probably the most significant and important, is the scalability of them. And I think what we've found over the course of the last 2 or 3 years is that whilst many people have trialled a number of innovations around IoT, very few people have scaled it, and that's because scaling has been complex. There haven't been the standards across the world to scale. It's been expensive to do as well. And not just the implementation, but the support of that. And I think we are beginning to see profound changes in that as well. The cost of the technology is going down. Common standards are beginning to emerge, or at least the 2 or 3 standards that are probably going to be the dominant ones are becoming more and more supported. and the costs of the maintenance are also beginning to fall. But I think we shouldn't underestimate the significance and importance of that third area. It's very easy to do a trial, and lots of people, including us, get very excited about trialling a whole series of these innovations, putting them in stores, seeing what happens. But it really is another dimension to scale that across your retail estate in one country, let alone across the world.
You will know from your own experience that people talk about constantly about ecosystems. It's the word of the past year and the next God knows how many. And of course, the Internet of Retail has an ecosystem alongside it. Do you know what that looks like now? How does it work?
Well, I would say this, that there are a lot of devices, and you only have to read both the technical press. I suppose now it's not even the technical press; it's the mainstream press to see all the new devices that are being launched on almost a daily basis. And I suppose those devices can be categorised under a broad umbrella, which is in one form or another they are sensors. And whereas, I don't know, maybe in the Industrial Revolution we lived in a motor world where motors were new and exciting, and now we don't really see them at all, but they're still there. And then we lived in a microprocessor world with computers, and now we probably don't notice they're there at all. And the same is going to happen with sensors. So sensors are going to be there, they're going to be all pervasive, they're going to be on every single object to make those objects smart. And I think we're going to see more interesting ways of developing those and integrating them into the normal fabric of products. Underneath that, of course, there is the major complexity of how do all these things communicate with each other, and how do you push and pull things towards them in order to have a communication with the consumer. And that bit of the jigsaw is the bit that is, I would say at the moment, very fluid. It's a bit like a piece of jelly. There aren't the standards in order to do it, and that's the thing that brings the complexity. When that layer is more firm, and we're beginning to see a couple of players making inroads into that and establishing some standards, then I think the ability to be able to take an object and make it smart, put a layer of communication underneath it, is going to be quite transformative in products becoming smart and more interesting, and organisations and companies looking at the products that they can create, the ecosystems that they need all around. I'm sorry to use that word again, but the alliances that they can create with different companies and different brands in a way they couldn't do in the past. I think we're going to see some really, really interesting alliances with companies A and company B in very, very different sectors, but actually working together to produce a product or a service that before the products were smart would be inconceivable, but now those two brands and companies coming together make very logical sense. I think we're going to see some ridiculous ones as well, but that's what innovation is all about.
Well, that won't be the first time, will it? Very interesting stuff, fascinating stuff, in fact, and at least you didn't say paradigm shift. So, David Roth, thank you very much indeed.
A pleasure, thanks very much.